opinion, how have you seen the airspace development market change and adapt over the past 12 months?
I think the biggest change has been obviously the introduction of the permitted development rights. So that's opened up a lot more of the sector for people to consider potential rooftop developments. Obviously, airspace has been around developments has been around for quite some time, but I think the permitted development rights has opened a lot of people's eyes as to what potential there is or what can be done with either existing buildings or buildings that are redundant.
And the PDR changes of upward extensions have obviously opened up these opportunities to a number of different areas. Where are you seeing these opportunities exactly in the UK?
Well, our business is in and around central London, so we concentrate geographically into those areas for rooftop development. But I think one of the big areas that we've seen a marked interest in is through people that have large portfolios or large stock holding at the moment of property. For example, housing associations may have many buildings on their portfolio, and it's opened up potentially a whole new area where they can realise more of their existing assets without having to go out and purchase new land or new areas, with a view to increasing the housing stock on their books.
Is that something where you've seen inquiries come from housing associations, or is it something that you're kind of pointing out to them?
Yeah, no, we're definitely seeing inquiries coming in from those people. Then at the same time, and as we try and adopt as a business, as BRAC Developments, is to look at potential joint ventures. So there are ways where the discussions can be held with those organisations to benefit both parties in potential rooftop development.
That kind of leads me on to my question about kind of how your funding model differs to other airspace developers with the JV approach, and how does that exactly work?
Okay, well, it's fairly straightforward, to be honest with you, Beth. The way that we try to operate with freeholders is under a joint venture agreement. First of all, we find a suitable freehold property, begin discussions with the owners of that property, and where we enter into a joint venture partnership, we would act for or be responsible for the design, the planning permissions, the funding, and then the deployment of the construction. And then we will share the proceeds with the freehold partner. So it's a little bit of a novel way of looking at it, but it seems to work very well, very receptive as well. We've had a lot of interest in that approach. Obviously, the key advantages of that type of approach is that the freeholders receive potentially a greater share of revenue of return once the properties are sold, rather than if they're just selling off the airspace. And that's sort of pricked a lot of interest from freeholders as well.
Does this increase the feasibility and profits of building upwards in terms of using this joint venture approach?
We like to think so. We like to think so. I mean, the benefits to us as a developer is that we don't have to go and find a large capital expenditure to purchase the airspace above the building. So from an investment point of view and from a developer point of view, it's quite good, because we've only got to go and fund the actual build or the development itself, rather than the acquisition of the area. At the same time, and because it's a joint venture, working as equal partners, we can determine and we can demonstrate that the returns to the freeholder will be larger than if they just merely sold the speculative part of the the airspace off to somebody. At the same time, we also, because we are the developer and we actually have a construction arm as well, we are the developer and builder. And I think with freeholders, it's important that they're handing over a very big asset, a potential asset of theirs, and you really need a trusted partner to build these rooftops. As you're probably aware, there's a lot that goes into the rooftop developments, and to work with a trusted partner, I think is vital for a freeholder.
I mentioned this earlier. We ran a feature in the Bridging Commercial magazine about the main myths around airspace development and what kind of current challenges that the market's facing. What do you think developers should be aware of in that point of view?
Yeah, well, those current challenges still remain there, very much so, Beth. All the ones that you touched on, structural issues, legal issues, dealing with all the tenants in the building, logistics of getting materials from the ground up to the rooftop development. None of that's changed. All those are considerations that go into it. We use, I don't know if you're aware of the term MMC, modern method of construction. So we spent a lot of time researching what materials to have prefabricated off-site in a factory and then brought to site and installed. The project that we've got going at Tufnell Park at the moment, we're on site in Tufnell Park. We had all the walls, all the roofs and all the floors manufactured off site, and we installed all of those in 8 days flat. So the whole block was formed in under just over a week.
How would that compare to kind of more of a traditional method? How long would that have taken if you did it that way?
Traditional method, even with a good bit of luck, would probably take you 4 to 6 weeks on site. So our time on site for that element of the works was reduced massively.
Is this, and you mentioned earlier about housing associations seeing this area as as a big kind of opportunity to build more houses. Do you think that they would also be keen to use modern methods of construction?
Definitely, most definitely. I think anything that can reduce overall cost of construction or time of construction has got to be seriously considered. The reason we've adopted the approach we have is because the buildings in London, they're not very uniform. All buildings are different. So we've been able to combine traditional methods of construction together with MMC. So it's a sort of a halfway house that works very, very well for bespoke or unusual shaped buildings.
Earlier we were talking about obviously the recent PDR changes around upward extensions. In your opinion, what do you think could and should be implemented in terms of PDR and how it can be kind of developed further?
Okay, I think at the moment the changes last year were quite significant. So I think there's plenty of opportunity for developers and investors to be getting on with effectively with the new changes. I think in the future, I think perhaps maybe with what's happened over the past 12 months, there may be further opportunities to look at office or commercial space with a view to conversion or to development on a quick basis. And I think that may be something that will come to the fore in the next 12 to 18 months.
And then my final question is about BRAC Developments and your main ambitions this year as a company. What do you hope to achieve?
Well, obviously, successful developments. We're in various discussions with a whole host of people around London on a joint venture basis, and I think they will produce better opportunities for us to carry on with our rooftop development business over the next 12 to 18 months.